Live young forever. Chapter 1, Early Craziness. It took me a while, but I figured a few things out. Hey, as I write this, I'm above ground, happy as anyone on this crazy mud ball we call Earth and loving every minute of life to the fullest. It wasn't always that way. As a kid, I was addicted to sugar and junk food, and this would contribute to my having crazy moods. My personal adventure began when I was 3 years old. I am told that I was a very hyper kid. I loved sweet things, so if I became rambunctious, to appease me, my mother would take a cloth with sugar and dip it in water, and I would suck on it. Sugar was my reward for everything. My health got so bad, doctors recommended my parents take me to a more temperate climate. Hence, we moved to the hot, dry flats of the Bakersfield area, where my grandfather had a sheep ranch in Greenfield. The ranch should have been an ideal place for the development of health and strength, because all the components were there. Sun, fresh air, spring water, fruits and vegetables. But something was very wrong. Our pumpkins and pears won blue ribbons at the county fair. Our livestock were fed only the best fodder. I remember that a lot of money was spent on feeding the sheep the best food to bring the best prices for our stock. While all this was going on, our entire family gave absolutely no thought whatsoever to their own nutritional needs. We simply ate and drank what tasted good. There were no blue ribbons for the LaLannes. The truth is, we lived for the farm. All attention was for the ranch creatures. My mother, a tiny woman to begin with, paid less attention to her own state of health than she would to a sick ewe. We lived for our work rather than by it. Neighboring farms were no different. The farm hands were eating packaged foods rather than fresh fruits, eggs, poultry, and vegetables. Looking back those 80-plus years today, I can see clearly what was happening. We lived by the barter system. We produced the best corn, fruit, eggs, and vegetables in the area. And what did we do with it? We trucked it into town and traded it for white bread, pastries, candies, packaged foods, and dessert preparations that looked tempting in the ads of the time. We traded away our birthright of health, energy, and body shape. Our degree of ignorance was sad. It was there, as a boy, that I developed a huge hunger and a liking for candy and soft drinks. No one had taught me to eat correctly because no one at our ranch knew how or cared. No one thought nutrition was important. The vegetables that we did eat were drastically overcooked, tasteless, and soggy. God bless you, Mom, you just didn't know. I ended up hating vegetables, but I loved chocolate bars, pie, cake, and ice cream. They were great. And not for a second did I consider that these foods were anything but healthy nutrition. We have the same situation today, even more so. We live in a land of plenty, yet we continue to eat the most atrocious foods imaginable. And worse, we encourage our children to do the same. Fast food restaurants are teeming with both adults and kids who just don't know the damage they are doing to themselves. But they should know. After all, magazines, newspapers, internet sites, and TV all go on about the singular message for health, fitness, and longevity. That message? It's the importance of eating wholesome, non-manufactured foods and exercising regularly. But hearing the message somehow doesn't translate to getting the message. My own youth from ages 10 to 14 was miserable. I never smiled. My teeth were discolored. I was a real junk food junkie. I became a psychological eater. One time I even sneaked $1 from my mother's purse to buy ice cream and candy. I would trade my lunch sandwiches any day for sugar donuts. As a result, I developed uncontrollable rages. My brother and I were always fighting. He was 6 years older, and I wanted to be like him. He would tell me, "You can't do that, kid." I was so skinny and scrawny that even the girls used to beat me up. I would get terrible headaches sometimes, so bad that I would hit my head against the wall. Our school in Greenfield was a one-room schoolhouse with 8 grades. I was a troublemaker and would get into a fight almost every day. Not only would the teacher give me a beating, but when I got home, I got another beating from my uncle because I screwed up in school. I was prone to fevers, and they came frequently. Once when I was about 13, I became seriously ill and out of my head with a temperature of 104 for about 14 days. I was a raving maniac and tried to shoot my brother with my uncle's .22 shotgun. Another time I tried to set the house on fire. By the end of the 14th day, the doctor said I probably wouldn't live through the night. But my mother's aunt had talked my mother into becoming a Seventh-day Adventist, and she got all the members of her church together for an all-night prayer session for me. Mom got on her knees and said, "Dear God, if you will spare Jax's life, I will never eat meat again." Seventh-day Adventists are vegetarians. By morning, whether miraculously or by coincidence, my fever broke. The doctors couldn't believe it. From then on, my mother never had a piece of meat and lived to be 94. But more was to come. A swelling developed behind my left ear. One day a friend accidentally hit it with a basketball. That caused me to scream at the top of my lungs. My temperature was 104 by the time the doctor got to me. They operated immediately on an abscess which, had it not been attended to without further delay, would have traveled and infected my brain. My body was hitting rock bottom. I wore glasses, had a back brace to support my weak shoulders, and used arch supports in my shoes. Because I was still a sugarholic and kept up my daily consumption of colas, chocolate, and candies, I continued to suffer from depression and loneliness. Life was a drag. As I write this, even 80 years later, I am reliving those dreadful years. I still feel the pain. About this same time when I was 13, my grandfather passed away. Not only did he pass away, but just before the Big Depression hit, our sheep, that were eating better than we were, contracted hoof and mouth disease. They all died from tainted feed just before they were to be sold. We couldn't pay our bills and the Bank of Italy foreclosed on the ranch. My mother, father, brother, and I went back to the Bay Area to Berkeley, California. My father went to work for the telephone company where he had worked before. I was still a very sick kid. In fact, I had to drop out of school. I was so sick. And then a simple event occurred that totally changed my life. A sympathetic neighbor, aware of my sickly disposition, got tickets for my mother and me to attend a Paul Bragg seminar at the Women's City Club in Oakland. We arrived a little late and the place was packed. I was wearing glasses at the time and my face was a mass of pimples and boils. I was embarrassed and secretly pleased that there were no seats. We started to leave. Then the lecturer Paul Bragg called out, "Lady with the little boy, we don't turn anyone away. Ushers bring up 2 seats and put them on stage." 2 folding chairs were placed on stage, and my mother and I sat in front of all these people for the entire seminar. It was the most embarrassing moment of my life, but gradually I forgot my position and became engrossed in what Mr. Bragg had to say. My dear friends, it matters not what your age is. It matters not what your present physical condition is. If you obey nature's laws, you can be born again. My mouth was open wide as I listened to this man talking about building the body, eating correctly, and exercising. Everything he said made sense. I was instantly converted to the health and fitness lifestyle. Bragg said I could be born again. That is exactly what I wanted. I had a desire to be an athlete. I wanted better grades in school. I wanted to be popular with girls. Paul Bragg seemed like a prophet. He appeared to be speaking directly to me. He described my woes perfectly, and he offered hope. I could have the whole new life he promised. I just had to feed myself properly and exercise correctly. He was offering a brand new, exciting existence that would lift me out of my anguish. I bought every word and added all the fervor of youth. I was off on the biggest adventure of my life. That night I became a vegetarian. I swore off all junk food. I determined that it was indeed the first night of my real, born-again life. Today I can see that I was too radical, the self-directed kind. I had no scientific training for what I was doing. I simply followed the various ideas that seemed to make sense at the time. I decided then to learn everything possible about health and nutrition, reading everything from Gray's Anatomy to muscle-building magazines to medical journals. I was getting educated. Still in my teens, I was searching. I was on a quest. Although I felt infinitely better than I had in the past, eventually I decided I needed some animal protein because I felt tired, sleepy, and frequently had gas pains. My diet lacked amino acids. I discovered the protein value in egg whites and later fish. I felt better immediately. That's not to say I disagree with people who choose vegetarianism. It's just that when I became active in sports and weight training, I found that some animal protein, especially fish, helps decrease my recuperation time after workouts and seemed to give me more stamina. In these teen years, I was crazy, eager to try anything. A man came to town. He had amazing skin and hair. Even his fingernails were perfect. He said he had a surefire formula. Soak grapefruit rinds all night, boil them in the morning, and drink the juice. I tried his recipe, and lo and behold, my hair, skin, and nails looked 100% better. When I later learned that I could get the same results from eating oranges, I took the nightly grapefruit rinds off the stove. I went overboard a different way. Another time I began experimenting with weightlifting with heavy cement blocks in my backyard. After lifting those heavy blocks every day for hours, I hurt my back so bad I couldn't train anymore. Having tried to find a cure without success, I learned of a doctor in Salt Lake City who swore by fresh vegetable juices. They are full of potent minerals, he argued, stating that such juices could heal muscular injuries. It made sense to me, so I tried it. I mixed celery and carrot juice together and drank 2 quarts a day. This seemed to help my back problem, but the excessive amount of carrot juice turned my skin orange. I found later I could have gotten by with half a pint of juice and had the same result. Gradually, I learned my lesson about moderation. Just because 1 apple is good for you, it doesn't mean that 80 apples will do 80 times as much good. Nutrition doesn't work that way. At age 15, I joined the Berkeley YMCA and got on their wrestling team. One day I saw these guys using weights. I asked if I could use them too. They said no. I said, if I wrestle you guys and pin you, will you let me use them? They laughed. I pinned them. And that was the beginning of my lifelong career. Soon after, I went to the foundry, bought weights, and started a gym in my backyard in Berkeley. Before long, I had police officers and firemen working out with me and was able to collect enough money to buy more weights and gain more students. My senior year in high school, I really started to enjoy life. I played quarterback on the varsity football team, wrestled for the YMCA, and took up shot put, high jump, basketball, and pole vault for the B teams. After my earlier unhappiness, I felt like an all-American boy, bursting with energy, doing well in my studies, enjoying female company for the first time, and perhaps becoming a little bit of a show-off to overcome my timidity. Even today, in front of crowds of fans, I'm self-conscious until I feel that my audience is with me. The only time I'm completely without shyness is when I'm 100% into actively helping someone else better their lives. Some years after graduating, I read about a tribe in Africa whose members were taller and healthier than neighboring tribes. These people drank quantities of blood from their herds of cattle. The warriors drank it straight while the women mixed it with goat's milk. It all made sense. The taste of good meat is in the juice, with enzymes intact. I was convinced that by drinking blood, not only would I get stronger, but my height too would increase. Got to get me some of that, I said. So off I went to the local slaughterhouse in Oakland. I was greeted with cynicism, laughter, ridicule, and disdain from the workers when I turned up every morning for my quart of blood. Hey guys, Jack's here. Come and watch him drink his breakfast. I created a lot of amusement, and the most common remark was, better you than me, Jack. Is it working, Jack? You don't seem to be growing. Jack, you gotta be a crazy guy. How could you drink that stuff? I drank blood every day for weeks until that is one fateful day when I got a blood clot stuck in my throat. That was the end of my blood drinking nutrition program. No more visits to the slaughterhouse. Today, I wince at the very thought of drinking blood. I can't imagine how I even did it. One day, when I had written my first book back in 1960, I was at a Hollywood party when Hedda Hopper, the famous gossip columnist, approached me. Are you going to deliver a copy of your book together with a quart of blood to ail your friends, Jack? No, Hedda, I replied. The blood thing was a little radical and it didn't seem to be working. If anything now, I would deliver a whole cow. I went a little overboard. In my quest for health and happiness, I decided to normalize my eating habits. My school lunch now contains whole wheat sandwiches, apples, and oranges. I was getting all my protein from nuts, legumes, and grains. But in truth, I didn't mind at all that my classmates began calling me Health Nut instead of their former taunt, Bellyacre. Life was getting better every day.